President Donald Trump is not really thrilled about his poll numbers versus Joe Biden. So much so that he had allegedly threatened his campaign manager. Now, this is according to a report by the Washington Post. Trump had screamed at Brad Parscale over the phone, allegedly telling him, "I'm not losing to Joe Biden. I'm not. I'm not." Okay, well, now the sources added that the president had used a lot of profanities throughout the call. Mr. Trump also allegedly made a threat to sue Mr. Parscale, mentioning the money he has made while working for the president. Apparently, he's made quite a bit of money. Another person familiar with the call said, although the threat, they said, appeared to not be serious. So, I'm going to sue you. You've been making a lot of money. Look, I don't know if he was serious. I don't know if he was joking. I can't really tell if Donald Trump has a sense of humor. I really can't. And normally you can tell when somebody has a sense of humor, when somebody's joking, even if they have a kind of a dry sense of humor. But I mean, I don't really see Donald Trump in humor at all. Like, I don't see him laughing at things, laughing at jokes. No, all I see him is having a really, really thin skin and then being very mean to people. And so if he thinks that's joking, I mean, that's not good. And also saying the most ridiculous things, like wondering about injecting disinfectants. So anyway, again, I don't know the president. I don't know his sense of humor. Maybe it is. To which, of course, Parscale had responded, quote, "I love you too." So again, maybe that is humor. But nonetheless, apparently they were fine by the end of the call. But still, the president seems to be really not happy with poll numbers that came out. And these polls were conducted by Reuters and Ipsos. And it's a general election matchup, with, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. And it showed that 44% of voters said that they would back Joe Biden in the November 3rd election, while 40% said that they would support Trump. So right now in the general, Biden's got a 4-point lead. I don't think that's a very good lead. I mean, it's decent. It's outside of the margin of error. So you've got that going for you. But I think it's too close, especially in this situation. We have a global pandemic. We have something where the president has failed completely in every way imaginable to help the American people. We have now 30 million people that are unemployed, erasing all the gains, every single gain. You also have 2,000 to 3,000 people dying every single day from COVID-19. I mean, are you serious? Of course, his poll numbers should be what. I'm going to borrow a phrase from Hillary. Why am I not 50 points ahead? Why is Joe Biden not 50 points ahead? Why is he not completely crushing everything? This brings me back to 2016. It's so close. It's setting up that situation, and I'm very concerned because in many ways it is 2016. You've got a presidential nominee, presumptive nominee in the Democratic side that nobody's excited about, and then of course you've got insane Trump. Although insane Trump has had nearly 4 years of complete and utter insanity. And yet, they're only 4-point difference. What is going on here? All right. So, but anyway, look, the poll numbers, that's still enough to trigger Donald Trump because he has a notoriously thin skin. So now he's worried, especially since in a different poll, you have 3 key battleground states where he is actually losing it. And so these are states that helped him win the 2016 election: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Now you have a 45-39 edge over the president. So the polls are a little bit more further away than they were back in 2016. They were a lot closer. And the polls also proved to be wrong, especially in these swing states, as they had flipped over to Trump. But nonetheless, there's still concern, right? Still really worried about this. So he could lose to Biden, possibly. But again, it's the same as 2016, but it's actually also different. And really, who knows what the hell's going to happen anymore? I mean, random play coming out of nowhere wasn't really on anybody's 2020 bingo card. So I'm just saying, very concerning. I'm coming into this with an abundance of caution, even with Trump's mistakes. So now, at about the same time this news comes out, Trump pulls the usual trick out of his, you could say, hat, or you can say something else. That really depends on you. And says this: I don't believe the polls. I believe the people of this country are smart, and I don't think they will put in a man who's incompetent. Are you sure about that, buddy? You sure about that? I mean, hello? Look who's president. You are. But no, he continues. He says, quote, and I don't mean incompetent because of a condition that he's got now. That, of course, is a reference to Joe Biden's problems with sometimes not being able to put together a coherent sentence. And all that stuff, right? But he says, I mean, he's incompetent for 30 years. Everything he ever did was bad. His foreign policy was a disaster. Now, look, Joe Biden does have some significant policy weaknesses in his past. Absolutely. You had the Iraq War. I mean, that right there is a really big lapse of judgment, right? Believing George W. Bush in going into a disastrous war in the Middle East? No, bad, terrible. You also had the issues of him lying and plagiarizing, being against, busing for African American kids during segregation, palling around with the segregationist, all that stuff. That's really bad. He's got a lot of terrible baggage. Biden is a disaster. I'm not saying Donald Trump doesn't have similar issues and is more of a disaster. Of course he is. He's a complete and utter train wreck. I mean, it's as if that there's a train carrying toxic sludge somehow collided with a garbage scow and sailed right into the Pacific garbage patch, which has then been set on fire. That's how bad this situation really is. So now, some on social media did decide to poke a little fun at the president. UVT says, who wants to tell him? Of course, about the, I don't think they put a man in who is incompetent. O's girl says, they already did in 2016. And Chairman Miles says, I mean, a plurality of voters voted for Clinton, so he's technically correct. So, fun. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.